What is up? Welcome to the American Peloton. I am Jonathan Crane. I'm a mediocre Cat 2 cyclist out of Birmingham, Alabama.
I'm Ben, head coach at Skyway Cycling and team director at Skyway, presented by Domestique Coffee. There's a lot
Yeah,
to catch up on.
yeah. It's been a minute. It was a rough. We debated doing a show last week, but that was right as the Tour de France GC drama was hitting a peak, and it probably wouldn't have been the best time to try and distract from like the only like people at my office who don't watch cycling were talking about it. So it was like there wasn't a lot of extra cycling bandwidth to go around.
No, yeah, all of the YouTube homepage was Pogacar's cracking and like nothing to do with any of the American stuff that was going on
Yeah, I mean,
simultaneously. So
not that there ever is, but now we have a little bit more of a content void. I think there's not because it's not just the race that's going on; it's the millions of Lance's podcast and Lantern Rouge, and there's so much surrounding media that Tour de France Fim is going on right now. Not as much, not sucking up as much oxygen as the traditional men's Tour de France, but cool that that's happening. We are going to talk women's American racing a little bit today. I definitely have some notes from Salt Lake because it was a good race that we could watch, and those are the major factors that control whether or not I have takes and stuff. I know we've gotten some reviews on like the podcast players and stuff that have been like, I like the show, but they don't talk about women's, and some of that is I'm not in those races, and then some of it is just like if there's not with the men's stuff, there's so many guys that are GoPro recording it. I can kind of piece it together after, even if there's not a stream. But so I need more women to run a GoPro, I guess. And if you're a women's racer who's got a YouTube channel that I have not found, doing ACC races, put it in the comments below for sure.
Yeah. There's also going to be a lot more to talk about with Salt Lake because I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
Yeah,
but Legion did not have a women's team at all. So some of the other women's teams got to, play around a little bit more.
Yeah. It made that women's race a little bit more interesting. I can segue off of that into all the miscellaneous pre-Salt Lake stuff because we're talking Legion. So Justin and Corey, obviously like kind of the anchors of Legion, they swapped. They did a switcheroo on jerseys recently. So Corey has been in the California sort of state flag jersey. I don't. We were debating before the show like what to call that thing, but it's like for NorCal, but SoCal is a different association or something. So it's kind of state champion, but not state champion. But whatever. Somebody clear that up. Comment. Let us know what that thing is. But the jersey it's got the bear on it. It looks like the California flag. Since Manhattan Beach GP, Justin has moved into that, and Corey has won the Belize championship. So, last year Justin was in the Belize jersey, Corey was in the jersey for California, and now they have completely switched over on that one. I did get a little bit of intel on the so Manhattan Beach GP was the race where Justin won the jersey. Little bit of intel from Jaden Yeager, guy that races on the Zwift team I race with, Restart Racing. He was in these races. I think he did the Masters and the Pro 1-2 with Methods to Winning. He's on that team with Rassam Bahati. But he basically said, and Jaden is like a world-class time trialer. He's definitely a dangerous guy to let up the road. But he said Legion was just kind of controlling it all day. They did the traditional Legion thing that we've seen a little bit less of this season, but Manhattan Beach GP, they did it. They stacked up on the front and wouldn't let anybody more than a few feet off the front of the race. And Justin took it.
Yeah. I mean, I think like it was a Pro 1-2-3 and a lot like only the major teams, California teams are there, which there's not that many. So there wasn't enough horsepower in the rest of the field for them to have to worry about it. And they were just able to do the classic Legion train to sprint win.
For
pretty
sure.
Pretty handily won that one.
Yeah, that's to be expected. But then we've seen some things this year where the Legion win was maybe to be expected, and then it didn't come through. So, you know,
It's also true.
yeah. I think okay, I've been thinking about this. We've talked a lot about the like, is Legion disappointing this year, or has everyone else gotten better, or what is it? And I think part of it is just that it's like the connection of that to another thing we've talked about, which is just peak crit. There's just so much racing this year that everyone is spread so thin, and like uh, Legion has not had a full A squad at every single race, so they've kind of been patchwork here and there. Yeah, that's definitely something we'll get to when we talk about Salt Lake as well. But
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, there's only been one or two races where they've had a real full squad, and at those races they've performed.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
Whereas like they're sending one, two, three guys, and and they're able to compete with teams that are putting a full seven guys in the field.
Yeah, they've been
Yeah,
spread thin like by their own goals, but also just by the amount of stuff. Like it did seem like
yeah,
they've tried to do a little bit more this year, but also like they're trying to do a little more, and then there's a little more than that happening. So it's just been a thin year, but it seems like early on we were questioning like what are their goals, because they don't seem to be sending everyone to ACC. We're not sure if crit is happening, but it does seem like they have their like first day of Tulsa was a big one, nailed it. This Manhattan Beach GP, it was a big one, nailed it. So they are like the big A races they had on the calendar, they seem to be nailing. Which brings me to another rumor, I guess, is that I've heard from people who may or may not be involved that Lions Den is supposedly happening this year, probably pretty
okay,
late, September, October. But not only is Lions Den happening, but also that Work Hard, Be Humble would be the Nashville-based team, which is interesting there. I don't know. We saw a big result from them with Cesar Marte a couple of weeks ago. Finally, at Dairyland, he got a win and he had a big week there. But then he had a really bad time
right,
at Salt Lake, which we'll get to. So
right. I'm not a fan of Work Hard Be Humble being the Nashville-based team. I think NLC Nashville Local is the team I would like to see representing Nashville at that race. I think they have a little more depth. Um,
yeah,
they've had a little bit of a better year.
NLC has definitely had a year that's been way above and beyond. Actually, that brings me to another thing I wanted to mention, which is Fitchburg Festival of Speed. Speaking of things that I can piece together because there's GoPro video, Fitchburg is a race that has been happening for a long time, pretty prestigious race, but no live stream or anything, and it was the Wisconsin State Championship. But so I saw this video. This is Michael Lambert, guy who lived in Alabama at one point. Had many cyclocross battles with Michael Lambert, but he posted a good video of the finish, and I watched it and saw someone winning in a Nashville local kit, and I commented on him on the video and asked him like, "Hey, is this Jeremiah Stoller winning?" And it was not Jeremiah Stoller. So my next guess was, "Is this Kyle Teasler winning?" It was not Kyle Teasler. It was actually Ralph Rufo for the win. So I think that speaks to what you were saying, that like Nashville's got a crazy amount of depth. I mean, they've been like slowly building for several years now, but this is the year that they've really broken through.
Right. Yeah, like if you're thinking about it, like you named two other names that could have won before you got to the guy who won. Like
Yeah.
that's depth, right? Like that's okay, how many guys on this team can win, and they're doing big races. And I mean, Jeremiah won it Speed Week.
Hmm.
Like, and they're putting up, we'll get to Intelligentsia, but they're doing well at Intelligentsia as well. And I think yeah, they've really leveled up this year and the results are showing.
Jeremiah's big win at Speed Week was also so like definitive and bold. He went for it on the, a little bit of foreshadowing for Salt Lake, which is like our big topic of the day. But Jeremiah went for it on the Gambler Preem, got the Gambler Preem, and then rolled it from there, which is the thing. Like, you never see that happen. You always see the Gambler Preem guy get reabsorbed, and it wasn't like there was just nobody chasing him. The group behind him was all heavy hitters from a big breakaway of like 6 or 7, and he got that win, and it like flipped a switch. Then
Yep.
things just kept rolling for them. Really good races at Snake Alley. They just kept it rolling from there. So yeah, I believe you see Rufo in the shot right here, going into the last few laps here, looking like about 10th wheel, but definitely moving up. And yeah, they have so much talent on that team. I mean, our friend Will Seitz, I've been saying for a couple of years, is like a rider to watch. Had some sneaky like top 10, top 15 results as a really young guy in ACC races. I think he was like he was maybe 10th at Birmingham Hammerfest last time that one happened, and like
Yep.
Justin won that one. Ty Magner was there. It was a big, strong field. So Blazers guys were there. Clever Martinez. So yeah, like real result. And I don't think we've seen everything that William is capable of yet either. So ton of depth on Nashville.
Yeah, they're going to be a team to watch the rest of the season, and honestly, a lot of next season. I think next season they're going to have a really like good breakout year. If this isn't the breakout year, next year is going to be like
Right.
crazy.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I've heard another rumor that now I'm looking for my notes. Corey Lockwood may be going to Nashville from Butcher Box. That's not confirmed, but apparently he has done or is going to be doing some guest riding with them. So
Yeah.
that would be. We've talked about Lockwood a good bit. He seems to be always moving around team to team. So he was,
Right.
Semper Poro to Legion to something else to Butcher Box. He's kind of been all over, but he's definitely strong and would be a weapon on that team for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Capable of winning, capable of contributing to helping them win. Like that would really help bring them up to that next level.
Yeah. So I guess on that note, let's get into Salt Lake, huh? Salt Lake is kind of the big. Again, it's the race we can talk about the most because it's a big race. There was an ACC race and there was a stream, which
Yep.
we have not had for a couple of other ACC races. I guess let's talk about that first. Last year there was a stream for every ACC race. This year they've been hit and miss and a little spotty. I wonder if that's not contributing to like teams not putting as much in the ACC basket as they have in recent years.
I think that's part of it, and I think just hearing from some other teams here and there, the return on doing all of ACC just like isn't that big. Like if you're like Project Echelon and you're based out of the East Coast, the odds of you winning and getting the money out of it and going to Boise where there's not a stream, like there's
Right.
no value in doing that, right? So I think a lot
Yeah.
of teams are picking and choosing which races are going to provide that value, and if there's not a stream, it makes it a really easy decision for a lot of those teams that it's going to be really expensive to go to certain races.
And like we've been talking about, like there's so much racing this year that everybody is kind of like picking and choosing and like
Yep.
moneyballing it. Like maybe they're going to a race without a stream instead of one of the ACC races that doesn't have a stream, but the one they're going to is closer to their sponsors, closer to their home base. They have better host housing. There's some like reason they're kind of able to get more out of that.
For sure.
So one of those teams that's definitely been doing a lot of that this year that has focused on whether it was ACC or going back to USA Crits before that is Automatic. And they had a really good showing in this women's race. We're jumping into Salt Lake women's race about 40 minutes in here. But I've got a couple like standout. I've got a standout rider from each race, from the women's and the men's, someone that has not been talked about a lot. But on the women's side here, Kim Stoveld from Automatic Racing is the person you're about to see in the frame if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're listening, just believe me that she's pain dangling about 20 bike lengths off the back of a breakaway that has like every major team represented. You had both NCL teams, Butcher Box, LA Sweat, all the major teams in this breakaway. And DNA, as Ben said earlier, there was no Legion here. So I think everybody thought we got to get in the breakaway because Legion's not here to chase it back.
Yeah, for sure. I think in a lot of the teams like Denver, DNA, Miami, who've sort of been a little bit outgunned by Legion, are definitely smelling blood in the water. They're trying to, win however they possibly can. And there were a lot of moves in the women's race. They were trying to get away. And this one looked really promising because literally everybody was in there.
Yeah, as once Stoveld gets there, I think every team that had representation. So the reason I'm calling Stoveld out specifically, and this is someone I met her and her husband at Speed Week, super nice people, talked to them for a bit, and she had a really good week at Speed Week too. And I think her husband just won some of the Cat 2 races at Intelligentsia, so they're both having a pretty solid season. But Kim was able to jump across to this move. The move got attacked, and then she bridged up to the move from the move. And as soon as that got brought back to the Peloton, she attacked again. And the announcers of the race were noticing it. I mean, just like insane animating the race just to make it to this break. Because they were, all of the relevant teams were up there rotating, and she bridged across solo. Super strong race. And then, it's easy to be defeated when you did all that work to get a breakaway going and it gets caught. So to be the one who attacks from that breakaway, super hard racing. Didn't translate into a result for her in this one, but the instincts were all correct, I will say. But I think, like you were saying, all the teams knew that Legion wasn't there to bring it back. They were all smelling blood in the water. So what happened is breakaways would get away with too many people, and then everyone would look around and say, everyone is here, and there's someone who I don't want to sprint against here. It was the classic thing where there's too many cooks,
Right.
And no one was letting one go. So there were a bunch of breakaways that, like, on paper you would think would stick, because it's like, who's going to chase if all these teams are represented? But then the break doesn't work together perfectly. And I think a couple of these, maybe like Miami would have someone in the move, but it wasn't the person that they're gunning for ACC points wise. And so they would be kind of pulling behind, and then, maybe their rider in the break isn't pulling through. And it just takes a couple of passengers for everybody in that break to look at each other and go, yeah, I'm not going to pull this person.
Yeah, there was just too many politics in every break. You can see it there. They're kind of in the break fanned out. No, everyone's kind of looking at each other like, are you going to work? Are you going to work?
Yeah.
No, because so-and-so's here, and I cannot sprint her, so tough. And then this kind of gets brought back, and it's a constant reshuffle. And there was never a point in the race where the hand and the brake was like the right combination, and it just kind of went back down to a bunch sprint.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that happen. Like the reverse of what has been happening, which is it has been like the strongest teams want a bunch sprint, so it's a bunch sprint. And now it was like the strongest teams want a breakaway, so no one wants to take the strongest people to the line. So then they kind of sit up and sabotage the breakaway. The math has been interesting. Here goes Stoveld on the right, if you're watching with us. Super strong move to have bridged across to that and not even had a long time to sit on and just attack her own move. So I'm going to say like breakout rider on the ACC scene for the women's side this year, for sure. Definitely coming on my radar for the first time.
Definitely like most improved. Like Athens this year, she was not like, she was kind of struggling, and then to see her progression throughout the whole season has been insane.
Yeah, definitely. I think she comes from triathlon, so I think she has that thing where, and some people can't flip this switch, but like you have the fitness and then the technical piece comes later. There's some people who have the fitness, and like because they get in these races and they're not able to express that fitness, it becomes this mental barrier where they just can't get over it. But it seems like she's done a pretty amazing job of like, figuring out the cornering, figuring out the pack dynamics. And so like taking her one race to figure out each skill she needed to have. And I think she's knocking on the door of some big results.
For sure. Was she the one that had the interview on Criterium Nation, or am I mixing that up?
Yes, no, that was her.
Yeah, so that was really good. So definitely, if you haven't, go listen to that because it gives a lot of insight into her background and all of that, and kind of really outlining and her vocalizing her progression throughout the season as well.
Yeah, for sure. So finish of the women's race, Paulo Munoz of Miami was able to take it. Interestingly, Denver Disruptors, which I don't think of as a sprint team, like really on the men's I guess on the men's side they have Noah Granigan, who's kind of a rouleur, could win a sprint in theory, but they took it on in the last lap and went 1 and 2 into the last lap, but just got absolutely rolled by Miami in the finish here, and Miami finished 1-2. Paulo Munoz winning it, taking the points. Confusing shot of I think they zoomed in on not the first person who crossed the line, but yeah, it was, I believe, Andrea Sear and Paulo Munoz were 1 and 2 there.
Yeah. Andrea kind of letting Paula take those points. That's kind of where the celebration was. She kind of like waved her forward a little bit to get those ACC points and really help move her into the ACC lead ahead of some of the Legion girls.
Yep. Moving over to the men's side, I don't know I guess I'll go ahead and give away who my standout rider of the race was. I'll see if I can find him on the video side here, but a guy I had literally never heard of, Mac Dorf. Probably going to be the thumbnail. I've got it in my mind. The thumbnail of you've already seen it if you've clicked on this on YouTube. But Mac Dorf, a kid who just came out of nowhere. He was in some early breakaways in the first few laps that looked really strong with a guy from CS Velo, I believe, and him were up the road. Around 5-10 minutes in, and went back into the field, took a couple of looks off the front throughout the race. The big one for Mac was the Gambler Prime, though, to get back to the idea of Gambler Primes. So this race has a Gambler Prime that is a bar of silver, a 1 kilo bar of silver, which I'm picturing Scrooge McDuck, silver solid bar. Yeah, I don't actually know how large a kilo of silver is, but that's what I'm picturing. So there's a preem for a kilo of silver, and I guess the standout things about Mac Dorf are two. One is literally never heard of him, and you're watching him go over the top of Legion didn't have a full squad here, but Legion, Blazers, everybody to get this preem. And then two is that he has no team. So he's on a just blank jersey. I think his team was listed as Your Name Here. So I did a little asking around.
Yeah. Okay, I was going to say there's a little bit of background on him.
Yeah. So he's coming out of that Lux program, which just ended last season.
Yeah, that now defunct Lux program, which put out some of our best racers for a while, was that Lux program. And then he's kind of looking for a team. I imagine after this performance, someone's going to pick him up.
Yeah, somebody's got to sign him. I mean, we're looking at it right here, but he's 19. He's attacking off the front, and he's got, Aviators, ACG, Empire. I got to say, Empire had a really good race here. MitoQ, I think they're MitoQ in Z is their name, but the New Zealand team. Yep. I want to talk about them a little bit. Just so we haven't had a lot of consistency in the field throughout this crit season, but one thing we have had is a lot of the international teams coming over and giving it a shot. We had DCC at some of the previous races, the German team with the German champion. And at this race and Intelligentsia, we've got MitoQ from New Zealand I think that's cool. I think it speaks to, the debate of the Legion, like, are they good or bad for the sport debate. I think it is pretty clear that they have raised the profile of American crit racing and made it something that squads from all over the country or from all over the world are coming to this country to say, like, let's give American crit racing a shot.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like the increased coverage of the crit racing has helped because now these teams can go and say, "Hey, I'm on this live stream," whereas they previously couldn't. And so I
Exactly.
think like the whole profile is being lifted. I'm excited to see more of these international teams hopefully come in and make American help make American crit racing attractive as a like professional bike racing option.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, like, not to toot our horn, but I do think that, like, YouTubeization of cycling has helped just because, like, crit racing is easier. I mean, I'll say personally, it's much easier to make a compelling video about a crit than it is about a long road race or, like, even a gravel race. I know that's popular to do, but I think you see so many crit race breakdowns because you can turn your GoPro on once, get the whole race,
Yep.
snip out, 5-10 minutes here and there. A style that, like, Corey kind of helped pioneer and popularize, and now I think other people have taken and, like, are doing on an even bigger level. We're looking at, or not a bigger level, but a more detail.
Yeah.
We're looking at a CS Velo rider right here, which reminds me that Alan Schroeder from CS Velo, who's also on Criterium Nation podcast, he's got a good video from this race. If you're not watching he's an example of one of those guys like him, Drew Dillman. There are a lot of guys in this scene that are making these Chris Tolley, not been racing as much this season. I don't know if he's injured or what, but those are some of the guys that are, like, making good content around this stuff that I think is people are watching it worldwide and saying, like, oh, that looks cool, looks fun, I should go do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think like between like the Alan Schroeder videos, Drew Dillman, like there's so many others like the Stash Power guy who's more of a Cat 2 guy, like all of these guys who are just creating like really, really high quality videos showcasing like how chaotic crits are. And as bike racers, like most bike racers want to ride their bikes hard. And I think crit racing is attractive in that way because like you're racing for an hour, like you're
Yeah.
going hard the whole time. With road racing and gravel racing, like to create good content around a 3-hour road race or a 6-hour gravel race, you
Or
have
a
to be a
12-hour gravel race.
right. Like you have to be a damn good storyteller.
Right.
Whereas like, with the crit, I mean, you turn the camera on like, hey, look at all this crazy shit going on for
Yeah.
10 minutes, and then you have a really good video just naturally.
Because in those other forms of racing, the compelling stuff has got to be more like personal, emotional, the
Right.
the dark, deep moments you get to when you're 10 hours into Unbound or whatever. And that's something where, like, you got to be really, like you said, you got to be a really good storyteller to get that out of the video. Whereas crit racing, a good crit, there should always be something happening, whether it's like I was trying this line and now I'm trying this line, or this guy's chopping me, or people are attacking and we're chasing. There is no down moment. It's kind of on the whole time. One of my friends who's a runner was watching some of my videos and he was like, this is like the Tour de France, but it's like I'm just watching the highlights, and that's the whole race. It's like
Yeah.
it's already chopped down to the NBC highlights package.
I mean, really, because the NBC highlights package is 41 minutes and a
Yeah,
crit
exactly.
45.
That's
Like
yeah,
it's
that's
perfect.
exactly what my races are. Yeah, exactly. So I think it is. We contemplate the future of the sport a good bit, but it's at least good to see that that content's getting out there and people are seeing it. Speaking of just like going through this race and who was doing what, I do have a CS Velo comment, but I'm going to get to it later.
I was going to
But
say, we talked about that.
yeah. We were texting during this race, so we tried not to do the whole podcast via text beforehand, but we did exchange some thoughts. One interesting thing that I saw, and I think this was the point where you tuned in, was we had a MitoQ rider, and this is kind of the first I was like, "Ooh, MitoQ, who's that?" Look them up. New Zealand team. Realized that they're there. It's cool they're there. They did a good job of sending one guy up the road and then having another guy get toward the front to kind of set a false tempo. So he did get a pretty threatening gap. What was interesting though was then we're around like the halfway mark, getting around like 30 minutes in. Automatic Abus sets up on the front like Legion style.
Yep.
And I think I texted our group and was like, "Hey, I see Ashton, a guy who we've seen racing since he started. He's from Alabama, just moved to Colorado recently to race with this squad, room with these guys. But first time we've seen him on the front on the live stream. But they set up 6 deep on the front and just absolutely drilled it, like burning guys off like it was a lead out. They've been trying some crazy stuff this season. I have a theory here. You got anything you want to say about it?
I just want to say I don't think it made any sense for them to do what they did right then.
Okay, it didn't work, but I think I understand what they were trying to do. My guess is that, and I don't know this for sure, but my guess is that Tom doesn't feel like he has the kick to go toe-to-toe with Corey this season. He hasn't seemed to... He's not like completely unfit. He's not totally out of the conversation, but he's going to have to win from a smaller group if he's going to win. So I think what they were trying to do here was get him to the front and keep him at the front for the mid-race point sprint, not so that he could sprint for it, but so that he could be ready for a counter off of that. I don't think that happened, but I think that was their plan, because if they could get him in the move with, the hope is Danny Summerhill is going to sprint for the point sprint. He's in the points jersey. He's super strong. Whoever goes against him or there's a counter, maybe they could get together, and it's like early enough that you get the right combination of guys. Tom and a couple other strong guys could get some distance, and Legion only had 2 guys in this race, so they wouldn't have the firepower to chase. I think that was the hope.
That makes sense, because we've seen them do that in the past, and they'll also do this thing where they pull a train and bring the brake just close enough for Tom to bridge up to it, and then they let it go back out. So I was like, it didn't make any sense, in my opinion, for them to chase like a solo guy like that, but you saying, okay, well, maybe they're trying to counter the point sprint, and then it kind of made me think about, okay, well, they could be doing this thing that we have seen them do in the past, where they bring the brake back a little, just enough, bridge, let it go back out.
It would have made more sense to do that at a different point in this race when there was a different brake up the road. At this point that we're looking at, they had brought the brake back, and they're still continuing to drill it, but they had brought that one-man brake back, but that sprint hasn't happened yet, which makes me think, and it looks like Tom is the last guy in the train there, which I think confirms for me that they're just trying to get him in position to, go with, maybe they were trying to split it down. They definitely lined it out. They didn't really split the race though before the sprint. But yeah, we haven't seen them at every ACC race this season. They've been bouncing around, as we said earlier, but they did what you were just talking about at Athens to great effect. That was maybe like tactically the best ride they've had this season, where a break got away without Tom. They brought it back just close enough for just Tom to get across, and then they shut it back down, that was huge.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to clarify, when I said, hey, they might be doing that, that's what I was thinking live when it was happening.
Right.
Okay, they're definitely not doing that.
Yeah.
So I think like there's a lot of weird splits. Like I think this move that we're seeing here, I was kind of there's enough of a break of a split that could have been a decent move with the representation. Like this race was just kind of really chaotic, with like McDorf trying stuff, people trying to get in small breaks, teams setting up lead outs 10 minutes into the race, 20 minutes into the race. Like, it was a really fun race, because it was just really like true chaos. Like
like everybody knew that Legion wasn't there with the full train. So I think if you wanted a breakaway, you thought maybe this is my day for the breakaway. I was a little
Yep.
bit surprised we didn't see more from Denver Disruptors in this race. I believe they had Noah Granigan here. Um, I saw it looks like we had a lot of Ama Insec up front early and then kind of lost him, which was counter to how we've seen him riding a lot this season. He's been kind of like, you know, surfing the back until it's time for him to move up. So that's a little bit different from him. I guess, do we
Yeah.
want to get into CS Velo now?
Yeah.
It's kind of there.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's kind of the next thing to talk about. I mean, Ama, maybe he was feeling particularly good this day and was like, you know what, I'm gonna sit in the front. Maybe I can, get in a cheeky little move and make something happen because he's really strong. Like he's strong enough to make a break work. I think
For
the
sure.
key thing with CS Velos, I texted you mid race. I was like, what are they doing? Because it's like 8 to go,
Hmm.
and CS Velo sets up a full lead out from 8 to go, and I'm like, what are they like? Are they trying to Legion this? What's
Yeah.
going on? I think we kind of landed on the thought that Ahmed kind of slid back, and they were doing that to help Ahmed get into position for the last couple laps and for the sprint. But honestly, even with 8 to go, that's still too far out. Ahmed ends up getting swallowed kind of
Yeah.
before even 5 to go, really. So it didn't make any sense to me why that they were even doing that from so far out.
Yeah, they really linked up their whole train and sat on the front full on. I believe that's Schroeder on the front right there.
Yeah.
His video from this race, I did watch the whole thing, hoping that there would be some commentary on what they were trying at this point. But the video that he's put out from this race so far is basically like going through the first 20 minutes and showing how hard it was, which it was insanely hard. I think he did 360 normalized for 20 minutes, which
Yeah.
that's my best 5 minute power. So
Right.
everybody wanted to go up the road, and this was a really fast race. It's also a really fast course. It's a traditional, flat rectangle course. But yeah, they took the front 8 to go, and we were kind of like, that seems a little too early, and it was too early. They got swallowed up, but maybe they were just trying to. I mean, if the strategy is, in a lot of these races previously this season, they had maybe if you try to take the front, if you say like, oh, we only have the firepower to do it from 2 to go or 3 to go, someone has already done it at that point, and you're
Right.
locked in whatever position you're in. So it might have been that they were saying, let's get position early, make it hard as long as we can, and then we will just, drop Ama off, and he's pretty good at freelancing, so we'll just let him freelance from there to the finish. But at least he's been brought to the front and like shepherded, and he's got 5 to go to. He's got good position at 5 to go, and we'll let him take it from there.
Right. I mean, that's entirely possible. Alan, I know you watched the show, so
Yeah, tell
please
us what you were doing.
let us know what was going on there.
Right now, 7 to go. You're on the front. What's in your head? What's the plan?
Right, please. Um, and then, I mean, this race had a lot of crashing in the last few laps.
There
It
were
was
a couple
one
big
corner.
ones.
It was one particular corner where we were seeing the crashing, and I couldn't figure out what about that particular corner was so sketchy. Because there didn't seem to be any obstruction, and the exit wasn't crazy tight. It was kind of narrow, but wasn't the narrowest we've seen in one of these races.
Right. So, and it's
But
also the corner we're talking about. We're seeing it right now. And Gabe Mendez, who we've had on the show, was on the front. There's a crash about halfway back that Iman Lucas, most of the MitoQ guys are caught up in. But the corner's going from narrow to wide. I actually would have thought that more of the crashing would have been the corner before that, where you're going from wide to narrow, because that's normally, guys are set up wider and you enter and you get pinched down.
yeah,
So anyone who was racing that race, it was also not the corner on this course where it looked like people were getting bumped around the most.
yeah.
Yeah,
Which
it
I mean, sometimes like when something is the least hard portion, you kind of like that's where you use your brain to kind of like take a quick break and reset. And maybe that's like everyone in that corner, they knew it was a little bit easier, so they're like letting their letting a little lapse go, and that's what was causing it.
Yeah, it could also have been, I was trying to figure it out. The going from narrow to wide, that as it widens out, as the people are seeing the exit of the corner and seeing kind of the door open on one side or the other. Because as it
Yeah,
goes from narrow to wide, unless everyone fans out perfectly, filling all of that space, which they're not going to do in real time. If you're a little farther back than you want to be, you're going to see an open door somewhere. And maybe guys were starting to pedal too early coming out of that corner. So they were still leaned and either like catching a pedal or just the thing where you start putting power down too soon and the rear wheel slips out just because you're, torquing the bike sideways and putting power down.
right.
But yeah, Miami Knights took over and really they sort of did the Legion thing once CS Velo lost control of the front with around 5 to go. And we saw a lot of people taken out in that crash that maybe could have been a factor. Iman Lucas from Aviators, and then Cesar Marte from Work Hard, Be Humble, who we were saying earlier has had some good results recently. It looked like Marte maybe had a collarbone, so that sucks to see.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure on that, but just the way he was holding it, it looked very broken collarbone to me.
I could be wrong, but I think he's at Intelegensia, so he may be okay. I
Maybe
saw
he is
him on the
okay.
result sheet, but I mean, obviously, someone could have been using his registration or something.
Yeah, who knows?
And then going into like 4 to go, Robin Carpenter starts to set up for Corey, and this is where we finally start to see some of the trains battling it out. I mean, Automatics up front, CS Fellows up front, Denver's up front. Everyone's starting to really battle it out, which is something we haven't gotten to see a lot last year, and we're starting to see more of this year.
Yep.
But as you can see, Robin Carpenter is starting to get Corey in a position with 4 to go, and then Corey takes a little tumble at 2 to go, and
Yeah.
in the same corner. Thankfully, he doesn't take anybody down with him besides one Empire rider.
Yeah. So a couple of people went down in Corey's crash. Oh, so I guess the thing to note there is Mac Dorf goes for the preem with 2 to go. He goes for the gambler preem and gets it. So he's off the front, and Carpenter is really, really just blasting it to get him back. Denver was doing some work, but yeah, Mac Dorf went nuclear with 2 to go. And if they had not started chasing him when they did, they would not have gotten him back. So they were hitting that corner really, really, really hard. It was basically like as they were about to make contact with Dorf after he wins the silver bar preem that Corey had that crash.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, again, that corner, there was something about that corner that we just don't see. So if you were in the race and there was something particularly sketchy about that corner, or something that was like definitely causing the crashes, other than it just being like a weird narrow to wide, like let us know, because I mean,
Right.
we're probably just missing something. But Corey's really, really leaned over there.
Yeah.
So it's entirely possible that the tires he ran out of traction.
Yeah.
Ran out of surface area.
It is amazing looking at the frame where Corey is about to slip out right here that more people didn't go down. Like,
Yeah.
to look at that and say that, it wasn't a massive, because this is the last lap. We're, I don't know, probably 600 meters from the line. Everybody is full tilt, catching a one-man breakaway. This is the kind of situation where you would think people would just pile up, and really crazy save. I think that might have been Noah Granigan right behind Corey with like skips his wheel, manages to get around, and one other guy hits the eject button there, which is pretty good, pretty well timed, skilled. Yeah, one Empire guy went down, just got caught at the back. But yeah, amazing there wasn't more carnage there. And Dorf, even when he gets caught, stays second wheel.
Yeah, Dorf is like, he's a hometown. He's from Salt Lake City. He's not like, he's going to die before he like
Gives up.
Gives up, right? So he's there, second wheel, trying to make it work. Denver takes the front into the sprint, which I don't think was a good move because ACG has been so dominant in these sprints.
Yeah. I think
I
that's the
would
kind
have
of move
started.
you make, like when there's been a crash and you're just going like, I don't
Yeah,
know who's still alive, so I'll just if I see an open door, I'll just hit it.
right. And Summerhill's been so good all year. He's sitting third wheel, which is like perfect position for the way this sprint goes.
Yeah, classic.
I mean,
Out of the
classic.
last corner, 250 meters, third wheel, perfect position. Summerhill is looking like in a straight drag race, one of the fastest guys. I mean,
Yeah.
he's gotten boxed here and there, but he did actually briefly lose the jersey for a second to I believe Alfredo Rodriguez
Yep.
from Miami Knights had the jersey briefly, and then he got it back in Boise. But it seems like Summerhill is all in, and ACG is all in. We've talked about teams not being all in on the ACC, but ACG is all in on ACC.
Yep, for sure. And I think Miami Knights at this point, they have three in the top five. Alfredo's 32, 38 points behind Summerhill. I think we'll see Miami Knights maybe make a shift in the game plan and go all in on ACC, assuming there's no conflicts with and the rest of the NCL races.
Yeah, I do want to answer a question that I've seen a lot and that I've had, which is, what is 1 kilo of silver worth, and how big is that? So it looks like this is the kind of we're answering the real questions on this show. It looks
Right.
like a bar of silver is. I mean, there's nothing in these pictures for scale, but that looks pretty big to me. And also looks like a kilo of silver is like almost a grand. So pretty sick preem.
That's a great preem, actually. I think there's another preem at Salt Lake for like a set of Envy wheels. Like I don't know who's putting up the money for these preems, but
Yeah,
like
sick preems.
that's those are the kind of preems that we need at every major race.
Whoa, you can get 1 kilo of silver bar as a skull. Oh, that
That's
one's
kind
out
of
of
it.
stock though.
Uh,
Makes sense.
one
But
of those are like $1,200.
yeah,
Maybe it's like the
this
design element to it.
right. The ones that are more have a more sculpted design have a little bit more value. So I'm guessing, I hope that all of these appear to have some kind of insignia. This one has a little Wall Street Bets guy on it. I hope that so Macdorf, if you're out there, show us the silver bar and what insignia does it have on it. I hope it's got like a little ACC logo or a
Please.
Salt Lake Crit insignia, something cool like that.
Yeah.
I think that covers it for Salt Lake, which, that was the big race we had for the week, but now we're in the middle of Intelligentsia. So I guess let's talk about what we know. And once again, we're into some races that don't have a live stream.
Yep.
They do have audio, but honestly, I can't listen to just audio.
No. We were born after 1950, so like radio only broadcast just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Um, for those of y'all that are not, maybe you're new to crit racing or don't really know what Intelligentsia is, it's a 10-day, it's like a 10-day stage race for crits. There's an overall jersey that's being worn. So it's 10 days long. They do a really good job of making each race pretty unique, different
Mm-hmm.
styles of racing. Some are more technical, some are more flat, and they're all kind of centered around the Chicago area.
Yeah.
A lot of really fun racing. The only downside is there's no streams for any of the Intelligentsia races. As far as any sort of coverage goes, it's all going to be YouTube. I will say Will Harden from Project Echelon.
Yeah, he's
Every
had some good
single day,
videos. Yeah.
every single day he's posted like a 10-minute highlight reel of each race with commentary. And Project Echelon being one of the best teams in the country, they've been in the top five consistently at these Intelligentsia races. He's providing a lot of really good insight for what's happening at the front of the race.
Yeah. Yeah, they've so I'm looking at the results right now. I'll throw this up here, but here's the overall on the men's side, and we mentioned MitoQ being the New Zealand team coming over and kind of taking the place of DCC, who we saw at some of the previous races, the German team that was over here giving it a shot, and up at the front of the race, mixing it up. MitoQ and Z seems to have gotten their feet under them because they've got 3 wins and they've got the leader's jersey with Ben Oliver. So pretty
Yep.
big coup for them. I mean, we've seen some success from like the Colombian team that's come over. So I guess I would put Intelligentsia in the same sentence as like, Speed Week, Intelligentsia, Tour of America's Dairyland, Gateway Cup. Those are kind of like the big, like week plus long series of crit races in America. So this is one of the big ones, and we've seen some success from like the Colombian team who came over to Speed Week a couple of times and got some results. DCC coming over this year and doing a few, definitely getting on some podiums. But if this holds out, that's a pretty dominant performance. They're looking like they're 3 for 5 so far.
Yep. And I think they're racing like right this minute. So, I mean, who knows?
Yeah, they could get a 6th one, any minute now as we're recording this. So if anybody knows anything about Ben Oliver, this is another Mac Dorf situation. This is a guy we don't know anything about coming out of nowhere. I guess I could hit up Alexander Ray, who used to live here. He was on Team Illuminate. He was, top level crit racer from New Zealand who was over here, lived in Birmingham, and used to do all of the Birmingham group rides. I could hit him up and see. I think he's still racing elite in New Zealand. See what he knows about Ben Oliver, because we clearly need some intel, because you look down this list and like the other guys, Simon Daniels from UNC Lotto Max, another guy I don't know about, but I do know teammate, another guy who races on Restart on the Zwift side of things, is on UNC Lotto Max, so maybe he'll know. But yeah, looking down this list, Robin Carpenter, Ethan Crane, Hugo Scala Jr., Brandon Fury, current amateur national championship, amateur national champion, Fergus Arthur, who's had a great season for Roadhouse, Ty Magner, some heavy hitters all the way down this list, Sam Boardman, Kyle Teasler, so Ben Oliver.
Lucas Bourgeon's been in Europe racing for like a Spanish team all year, and he's guest racing for Austin Aviators, so that's another hitter. Intelligentsia is no joke. So to be at the top of that leaderboard's stout.
Yeah. So who is Ben Oliver? Where did he come from, and how is he doing this? And who else is on? Like, Hayden Strong. I'm seeing that name. That's someone I at least recognize that name. So I think he's been over here and done American races before. But yeah, somebody give us the lowdown on him. You did mention Aviators, and I think that's a good way to close it out, I guess, for today. Is we were talking about this sort of who's been above expectations, below expectations. We didn't mention that Empire is a second-year team. They share some sponsors with our team, so we're like hyper aware of them, I guess. But they had a really good showing at Salt Lake. They put someone in the top 10, and they were really active. They were one of those teams early on, the chaos you were talking about. They were instigating a lot of that chaos. But I say that they had a good race because they were punching above their weight for what I expect of them. They're only a second-year squad, but they're also not incredibly well funded, all guys with other full-time jobs for the most part, and there were no names on that I knew outside of just some people I had raced before, versus Aviators, who is the new lead. They're a first-year team, so give that to them, but they got some big names and have not had a signature result this year, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, they haven't won anything huge, which I didn't think they would. Just kind of being from the Legion ecosystem, I figured, they probably won't. But there hasn't been like a really good result. And they have Iman Lucas came over from Belgium, like Connor Saly. I mean, they have a really strong roster, and they just haven't.
Connor White also.
Yeah, Connor White. Like they haven't been able to perform to, I think, all of those guys' potential. I don't know if it's like a team gel situation, because they are so far apart from each other geographically.
Right.
That maybe the team dynamic and the team isn't gelling at races quite yet, but yeah, they're
Yeah.
just not living up to their hype, I think.
Yeah, it does seem like it's like the whole is less than the sum of its parts at this point or something. Like
Yeah,
they just haven't put it together to the degree that I would have thought that they would be capable of, if that
yeah.
makes sense.
And
So
I mean, to that note, I mean, I think Miami Blazers is not as good as they were last year either.
true, but I'll say I was just thinking about it as you were going through that. I think that the Fury Nationals result kind of saves their season,
I agree. Yeah,
as well as the like Johnny Brown has had some at the Snake Alley weekend had some wins. Like they're getting some here and there, and it might just be that maybe Aviators. If you're someone who's like from the West Coast, are there Aviators guys that are just killing it at races we don't know about, or like are we missing something? Because it seems like we're seeing them race a lot, and they're near the front, but we just haven't seen them break through. We haven't seen them be in the right moves. I don't think any of them like lapped up at Athens. They only had a couple of guys there, but yeah, they've
yeah,
been consistently at ACC races, and we just haven't seen. Like Iman was maybe he was going to win at Salt Lake, but he got caught behind that crash.
yeah. He's had some bad luck. Like I'll give Iman some credit. He's had some bad luck, some mechanical, some crashes, and key moments of the race. Which like a lot of that's also like positioning, like flawed positioning too. So it's hard
Sure,
to,
maybe so.
I just
You
I
can't totally
expected more out
separate
of
it.
them. Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
yeah.
I
I think
expected more out of them.
the underlying point of what we're saying is like if maybe Nashville is the most punching above their weight of the season, uh, Aviators is like most like impressive on paper and hasn't lived up to it, maybe.
Yeah,
So yeah, I guess it makes more sense for Blazers to be a little bit down from where they were last year because they lost so much talent. But Aviators, they were nowhere last year, but they're also coming in with a huge amount of talent. But yeah, it
right.
seems like they've had guys guest riding pretty consistently, so maybe they're gonna like find the right mix of people, get some new guys on for next season. I
Yeah,
think they can put it together. That's why we're talking about them. They're certainly
yeah,
like capable strength wise.
right. That's the thing is like we're not just like dogging on them. It's frustrating to watch because like they're capable of like really good results and really good things, and they just haven't put two and two together on it yet.
Yeah,
So I'm hoping next season they get the right talent in. A lot of team success is due to like recruitment and getting the right people on the bus, and so hopefully
sure.
in the off season they get the right people on and they're able to get the results that they're capable of.
And we'll see what happens next season. I guess our last thing here, NCL. So we got the other two NCL races coming up.
Yeah,
One was canceled, which, is not a great sign. I hope, fingers crossed, that NCL continues to next year, if only, and I think most people will agree with me on this point, even if you hated watching the NCL races, it has been great to see the NCL teams racing throughout the season, just to have two more well-funded teams on the men's and the women's side. And I think the NCL teams have maybe even had more success on the women's side than like, yeah, I don't know, equivalent success probably as I run back the whole season. But they've really stepped in with a lot of money and talent on both sides, and I would hate to see that go away. If the league went away and see all those riders,
right.
scrambling for contracts and stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think having the two NCL teams in the races has only made the racing better. We've been able to see them really compete with Legion, compete with ACG. We've seen the trains compete. Like they've only elevated the racing, and so I think it would
Yeah,
be a shame for them to go away.
for
But
sure.
there are some concerns starting to
Rumblings,
pop
yeah.
up with NCL. I mean, Washington D.C. getting canceled, which I mean, the reason for that was the location they wanted was pre-booked for like a 5K or something, which
I think we always said that was going to be hard too. I mean,
yeah,
it's to do anything in DC is going to be like it's hard to do a race anywhere, but to do it in DC is even harder.
Yeah, for sure.
But that was the first like not great thing.
Yeah, and then they announced some leadership changes. Most notably, CEO Paris Wallace has stepped down.
We're planning to go to NCL Atlanta. We're gonna see. I guess that's another one of the things that like maybe not a great sign is their race was moved from Atlanta proper out to the race car track. But maybe that's actually not bad. Maybe that's just a sign of where they're headed as an organization, trying to find venues that they can actually like sequester and sell tickets or whatever. Which like I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to prejudge it. We'll see. I had fun watching the first one on GCN, so we are gonna find out. I guess we're gonna be at that, and then we're planning. I've got like a knee thing going on right now. I went a little too hard last week, and hopefully that clears up. But provided that it does, we're gonna be at racing at the Alabama State Championships, and then we're kind of done.
That's it. You're on the cross. I'm on to a little bit of gravel, so maybe I'll do mountain bike marathon national champs. That's in Alabama this year. If I can get some reasonable volume in.
Yeah,
but that's about it.
But we're gonna have somehow still a ton of racing to watch because potentially there's still a non-zero chance that we have a CRIT series
in October.
After NCL, and we still got several ACC races. So, everybody stay tuned here. Look for us out in the real world. If you see us at races, always happy to talk to everybody. And once again, I've done the thing where I didn't say to like or subscribe, but rate us on your podcast apps. Check out Ben's coaching company. Buy some Domestique coffee, and we'll see you guys next time. Appreciate it.